I still remember the morning it arrived. A white envelope tucked into my mailbox, the gold lettering shimmering faintly in the Seattle sun. My name, Olivia Harper, curled elegantly across the front. Inside was an invitation to my younger sister Chloe's wedding, a day I thought I'd never be asked to witness. I froze on my doorstep, the paper trembling slightly in my hands. Memories I had locked away for years stirred awake like shadows slipping under the door. Part of me wanted to toss it aside to pretend it had never come, but another part whispered, maybe it was time. Michael, my husband, found me sitting quietly at the kitchen table, with the envelope still unopened beside my coffee. He reached over, touched my hand, and gave me that steady smile of his. "Are you going?" he asked softly. I shook my head at first. After everything that happened, I don't know if I belong there. His voice was calm, certain. "Leave, you don't go there for them. You go for you. To stand tall. To show them you're not the same girl they tried to break." His words lingered long after he left for work. For years, Chloe had been the shining star in my parents' eyes, while I was, well, the shadow that trailed behind her glow. I had built a life away from them, crafted with my own hands. A career I was proud of, a family that loved me as I was. Still, the idea of facing them again made my chest tighten. I imagined the whispers, the sideways glances, the rehearsed smiles that never reached their eyes. Yet beneath all that fear, there was a flicker of curiosity. Maybe this was a chance not for reconciliation, but for closure. That evening, I watched my son Ethan draw spaceships at the living room table, his brow furrowed in concentration. He looked up at me, grinning, his eyes bright like his father's. In that moment, I realized something. I wasn't the scared teenager they once cast aside. I was a mother, a wife, a woman who had survived and built something beautiful. Why should I let old ghosts steal my peace? Ethan deserves to see his mom strong, not shrinking from shadows. The thought gave me courage I didn't know I still carried inside me. So I picked up the phone, dialed the RSVP number, and whispered a quiet yes. My voice barely audible but firm enough to mark the decision. I was going. To the wedding, to the stage where the Harper family would put on their perfect show. My hands still shook, but somewhere deep down I felt a spark of resolve. They had written me out of their story long ago. But this time I would walk into theirs on my own terms. Not as the forgotten daughter, but as Olivia, the woman they never expected me to become. Napa Valley was breathtaking that weekend. Rolling hills lined with golden vineyards, the crisp air scented with ripe grapes and luxury. Chloe's wedding was set in an opulent estate that seemed lifted from a bridal magazine. White marble arches, strings of fairy lights, the sound of a grand piano echoing across the courtyard. Guests arrived in sleek black cars, women in silk gowns, men in sharp suits. As I stepped onto the terrace, I felt like an extra on someone else's movie set. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a performance meticulously curated to showcase the Harper family's image of perfection. My parents, Richard and Evelyn Harper, stood near the fountain, smiling proudly as they greeted guests. Evelyn, in her pastel chiffon dress, pearls gleaming under the sun, looked every bit the doting mother of the bride. Richard, tall and composed, clasped hands with colleagues, introducing Chloe like she was royalty. I watched from a distance, remembering how they had always presented themselves. The perfect couple, the successful dental practice owners, the loving parents with two beautiful daughters. But that image had always been just that, an image. Behind the smiles were years of favoritism, neglect, and unspoken cruelty. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the observer. Chloe was vibrant, bubbly, always in the spotlight. Our parents adored her, praised every small achievement, celebrated her beauty and charm. Meanwhile, I was the afterthought. If Chloe got a gold star, she was taken out for ice cream. If I brought home straight A's, it was expected, not celebrated. Once when I made the honor roll, Evelyn barely looked up from her magazine. "Well, that's what we raised you for," she said. That sentence stayed with me for years. It taught me something painful, that love in our family was conditional. It wasn't just emotional neglect. They actively compared us sometimes in front of friends. "Chloe has such a natural gift with people," Richard would say, casting a glance my way. "Not like Olivia, who always hides in her books." I remember a Thanksgiving when Chloe accidentally spilled gravy on the tablecloth. Everyone laughed it off. When I dropped a plate a few minutes later, Evelyn scolded me for being clumsy. The double standard was suffocating. Over time, I stopped trying to earn their approval. It was clear that no matter what I did, I would never shine as brightly as Chloe in their eyes. Standing there at the wedding surrounded by this carefully crafted illusion, I realized something important. Families like mine exist everywhere, families that value appearances more than authenticity. I've met many people who grew up just like me, feeling like they were never enough. We're taught to hide the cracks, to smile for the camera, to keep the family secret. But pretending everything is perfect doesn't heal anyone. If anything, it deepens the wounds. I looked at Chloe radiant in her gown and wondered if she ever questioned the pressure of carrying that crown. As the ceremony music swelled and guests began to take their seats, Michael squeezed my hand. "Ready?" he whispered. I nodded, taking a deep breath. This was only the beginning. I didn't know then how quickly the illusion would crumble, but I was about to find out. The first clash came quietly, like a ripple in calm water. I had excused myself to find the restroom, weaving through marble hallways lined with guests. That's when I heard it, voices sharp and cutting. "Who invited her? She doesn't belong here." The words landed heavy, though not unfamiliar. I turned and there was Chloe, her perfectly styled hair gleaming under the chandelier. Her smile vanished the moment our eyes met. "Olivia," she said the name like a sneer. Still trying to show up where you're not wanted, my heart tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "I was invited, Chloe." In moments like these, memories have a way of rushing back. I remembered being 17, standing in the school hallway, while Chloe whispered to her friends, "Don't mind her, she's just my awkward sister." It stung back then, and hearing echoes of it now almost made me falter. But I reminded myself I wasn't that teenager anymore. Many viewers will understand this feeling, how one careless comment can transport you back to a version of yourself you fought hard to outgrow. It's called being triggered, and it happens because our brains store emotional pain as vividly as physical scars. Chloe's voice rose loud enough for guests to notice. "You're a dropout, Olivia. You always embarrassed us. What are you even doing here?" Heads turned. I felt Michael tense beside me, but I squeezed his hand, signaling that I had this. Part of me wanted to defend myself, list every accomplishment, every battle I'd won. But I knew no explanation would satisfy her. That's the trap of toxic families. You can't logic your way into their love. The more you try to prove yourself, the more they twist it. Instead, I stood tall. "I'm here because I chose to be." Guests shifted uncomfortably, whispering, uncertain whether to side with the radiant bride or the sister they barely knew. And this is where a small truth revealed itself. Often people will believe the loudest voice, not the truest one. In families, that usually means the golden child gets the benefit of the doubt. But silence too is powerful. By refusing to argue, I let Chloe's anger speak louder than my presence ever could. And in that silence, cracks appeared. I saw her fiancé, Andrew, glance between us, his brows furrowed. For the first time, he looked uncertain. As tension thickened, I realized this wasn't just about me. It was about every person who's ever been cast as the lesser one in their own family story. The lesson here is simple, but hard. You can't control what others think of you, but you can control how you respond. My choice in that moment was to respond with dignity, not rage. And though Chloe's voice echoed through the hall, my quiet strength unsettled her more than shouting ever could. She didn't know it yet, but the illusion she built was already unraveling. I took a deep breath and finally spoke, my voice calm, though my heart pounded. "You've painted me as a dropout, Chloe, but the truth is different." I told them how I left home at 17, working late nights at diners and cleaning houses just to afford rent. How I applied for scholarships in secret, studying until dawn to keep up. Every dollar I saved was a step toward freedom. Guests leaned in, surprised. This wasn't the story they had heard. And as I spoke, I realized I wasn't just defending myself, I was reclaiming years of stolen truth. Chloe laughed, brittle and sharp, but Andrew didn't join in. His expression tightened, doubt flickering across his face. "Olivia's exaggerating," Chloe snapped. "She couldn't even finish college." That was when I straightened my shoulders. Actually, I did. I worked 3 jobs to get there. And now I run a design firm that partners with companies across the country. Gasps rippled through the room. I didn't list my successes to boast. I did it because for too long I'd been silent. And silence can be mistaken for weakness, when in reality, it's been endurance. The truth has a way of shifting the air. I saw Andrew glance at Chloe, his eyes narrowing slightly. He was remembering the polished version of her story, the honors, the dental career, the promises she had made about their shared future. Olivia, stop lying, Chloe demanded, her cheeks flushed, but her voice cracked. And when voices crack, people listen differently, I gently continued. You told everyone you finished dental school, Chloe, but we both know that's not true. You never passed the entrance exam. You've been working the front desk, not treating patients. The room fell silent. This is the danger of illusions. They crumble the moment someone dares to name the truth. And it happens not just in families, but everywhere. I once had a coworker who exaggerated her credentials until one day when questioned, everything unraveled. It's easy to chase approval by building a false story, but when truth comes out, the fall is harder than if we had simply been honest. Guests at the wedding shifted uncomfortably, whispering. Some pulled out phones. Andrew's face went pale. Is that true, Chloe? He asked softly. Her silence answered before her words ever could. In that moment, I learned another lesson: you don't need to scream to be heard. Sometimes all it takes is steady truth spoken without fear. And while Chloe struggled to hold her image together, I felt lighter, freer, as if chains I'd carried for years had finally broken. Yet I knew this wasn't the end. The cracks in Chloe's illusion were only beginning to spread, and the collapse, loud, messy, undeniable, was still to come. Part 5 would be the breaking point, where everything they'd tried to hide would unravel in front of everyone. The moment Chloe realized her secret was slipping away, panic spread across her face. Andrew reached for his phone, his voice shaking. I'll call Dr. Larson, the dean you said recommended you. In a flash, Chloe lunged, yanking the phone from his hand. The sound of it shattering against the marble floor echoed through the hall. Gasps erupted. Some guests stepped back. Others raised their own phones to record. Her polished image cracked right there, not because of my words, but because of her desperation. Illusions often crumble, not when challenged, but when the one holding them breaks first. I stood still, my heartbeat steady. For years I thought power meant shouting louder, fighting harder. But in that hall I realized power could be quiet. It could be choosing not to flinch when chaos raged around you. Chloe screamed, "Don't believe her, she's jealous." But the more she shouted, the more hollow her words sounded. Guests whispered, recalling times. Chloe's stories never quite added up. It reminded me of a truth I'd seen in workplaces too. When someone overcompensates, it usually signals insecurity. And when insecurity is exposed, it often reveals more than any accusation could. Andrew's face told the story better than anyone's words. Betrayal flickered across his features, the weight of broken trust heavy in his eyes. You lied to me, he whispered, shaking his head. Chloe reached for him, but he stepped back, creating a distance that said more than any speech. My parents tried to intervene, pleading for calm, but their voices were drowned out by the murmurs of guests. Reputation meant everything to them. Yet here it was, unraveling thread by thread in front of the very people they tried hardest to impress. The performance was over. In life, we often believe keeping up appearances will protect us. We hide debt, exaggerate resumes, pretend marriages are happier than they are. But when truth surfaces, the collapse can be swift and brutal. I once knew a colleague who faked credentials for a promotion. It worked for a while, but when the truth emerged, not only did he lose his job, but also the trust of everyone around him. That's the lesson Chloe faced now. Illusions may buy time, but they can never buy peace. And when they fall, the pieces cut deepest at those who built them. I didn't feel triumph as I watched it unfold. Instead, I felt an unexpected peace. Chloe's meltdown wasn't my victory, it was simply the truth catching up. And truth doesn't need an audience to be real. But that day, it had one. Michael squeezed my hand, guiding me gently away from the chaos. As we stepped into the evening air, I knew this chapter of my life was closing. Yet another one was waiting, one built not on illusions, but on freedom. As Michael and I stepped out of the hall, the night air wrapped around me like a blanket, soft and calming after the storm inside. Behind us, voices rose and fell, but I didn't need to turn back. I had lived my entire life chasing a kind of validation that was never meant for me. Tonight proved I no longer needed it. For years I had believed their version of me the invisible one, the failure, the burden. But the truth was clearer than ever. I had built a life filled with love, resilience, and strength. That was enough. The wedding reminded me of every chapter that had led here. The favoritism, the punishments, the painful comparisons. Those experiences shaped me, but they didn't define me. Walking away at 17, scraping by on odd jobs, finishing college against the odds, and creating a home where love wasn't conditional. All of it was part of reclaiming my story. Families like mine aren't unique. Many of you watching may have lived in the shadow of a sibling or carried wounds from parents who couldn't see your worth. And maybe tonight you'll realize, like I did, that your past doesn't dictate your future. Freedom, I've learned, isn't just leaving a toxic space, it's choosing what you build in its place. For me, that meant nurturing my marriage, raising Ethan with compassion, and pouring my creativity into work that mattered. For you, it may mean setting boundaries, pursuing a dream others dismissed, or simply saying, I deserve better. The common thread is courage, the courage to believe in your own worth when others don't. And sometimes the most radical act of healing is simply walking away, not to spite anyone, but to protect the peace you fought so hard to create. If there's one lesson I hope you take from my story, it's this. Illusions can crumble, but truth endures. My sister's lies collapsed in front of hundreds of guests, but the real victory wasn't her downfall. It was my freedom from needing her or my parents to validate who I am. The same can be true for you. When you step into your own truth, the power of others' opinions fades. It's not easy. It takes years and sometimes tears. But on the other side is a life filled with authenticity, joy, and love that's unconditional. That's worth every step. So now I turn to you. If this story resonated, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or underestimated, know that you're not alone. Share your experience in the comments. Let others know they aren't walking this path by themselves. And if you want more stories of resilience, healing, and the messy beauty of family dynamics, hit the like button and subscribe. Together, we can create a space where truth matters more than appearances, and where freedom is celebrated. This is not just my story, it's ours. And I hope you'll walk into the next chapter with me.